as far as James and his state of mind, how he's choosing to move within the organization. He chooses to go to camp, misses media day, misses the early stuff, and then he's there. And first couple days didn't do any live action, but seemed like the spirit was good. But he is, as unhappy as ever when it comes to the state of where he works these days. He wants to be on the Clippers. He's still irate at how this situation was handled. And like Shams and I wrote, for now, there's a calculated effort and a choice to get out there and not be a distraction as a way to help him get where he wants to go. We'll see if it works. But man, it's one of the more unique situations I've covered because it's not explosive like a Jimmy Butler, Minnesota situation at this point. There have been explosive moments. We know about James, what he said in China about Daryl Morey. But it's so interesting to see the leverage element here and the power and the influence where you talk about, the Clippers bidding against themselves, which conceivably, they could just dig their heels in and never move, but they probably wouldn't get their guy because Daryl Morey is as stubborn as anybody in the league, and he's just not trading him until he likes the deal in front of him. It doesn't matter if he's talking to just one team. I think the Sixers feel like James getting out on the court and showing that he's in a very good place basketball wise is the quickest way for him to get traded.
Sam,
Yes, sir.
I mean, I kind of want to stop you there just to maybe
Diatribe
even
ended. Yes.
ping questions at you. But tell me how he looked from the outside looking in, he's in shape.
Yeah, for sure.
He's
Very good shape.
at least handling the player to player relationship stuff well. Do you feel iciness? I mean, the situation going in, but do you feel iciness like around the building or not really? And like, what was Fort Collins like?
James is an interesting dude, and I'm answering your question because it's funny. He was I thought about this when I was out there. He was extremely close to Kobe Bryant, the late Kobe, and had the same agent as Kobe. And Kobe actually kind of ushered that relationship in when Rob Pelinka was an agent. So all of which is to say, like, I keep thinking about the way Kobe handled his dissatisfaction at different times, which was, no bones about it. You knew he was pissed. He told the world, he told Stephen A, he told radio shows, get me out of LA. James is, I didn't cover the Kobe situation up close, but I think it's safe to say James is a similar level of unhappy, but he's just a different personality where he doesn't share everything. He doesn't act out necessarily in those kinds of ways. Now we've seen obviously with Houston, showing up late, partying when the team was in camp. He has his own ways. This is different. He's in shape. Is it icy? 100%. I mean, with his teammates, no. I talked to Danny Green about it. Danny actually lauded James with praise for his professionalism. Talked about James, talked about PJ Tucker, Pat Beverly, and the way that they had, helped, with the on-court mood in the early days of camp. Now, James and Daryl still as sideways as ever, and I think it extends beyond that. I think frustration at Josh Harris, and then the longer this situation goes on, if you look at big fella, Joel Embiid's got a lot of juice in that organization, and to this point, it seems like he is taking a Switzerland approach to this conflict. And, I don't know how that sits with James, but we don't truly know because, not surprisingly, certainly I've tried to get his perspective, try to convince him to talk when I was out there. Thought he might for a moment. That didn't ultimately happen. He's not coming out and telling everybody exactly where he's at.
How long can he not talk to reporters?
In terms of rules, that's a good question. And shoot, as a official on the PBWA, I should probably call the NBA soon and get some sense of it. But it's the rules in camp are they're a little malleable. Where Embiid's talked twice so far. I didn't track James's media stuff. He didn't play in Boston in the preseason opener, and Joel didn't either. So obviously he didn't talk there. But we're getting close to where, it would be an issue that he's not
if he
talking.
plays a game. Do you think he's gonna play a game, by the way?
I do. I'm handicapping it. Yeah, I think the progress on the Clippers front, and by progress to define it, it's the idea that that the Clippers are doing things that ultimately, could talking to other teams that could improve the offer and get James where he wants to go. For now, I think the calculus is that if he sits, if he just pouts and he disappears, then the Clippers might retreat a little bit. I think that's a concern. So for now, I think I think it is going that direction. Now the next thing is if the Clippers land some of these draft assets, they come the Sixers' way with that new offer. I'm here to tell you for sure, like there's absolutely a chance that after all that work, they get the offer a little bit better. Daryl might look at that new offer and say, this isn't it either. Like that's it. And if that happens, then it's a major question of what does James do next. But for now, I think this is the way he's proceeding.
Sam, what do we think is the offer? Like what is Daryl Morey waiting for here? Does he want everything the Clippers can offer? Terrence Mann, those two unprotected firsts. Do you see a world where it ends up being like one unprotected first and Terrence Mann, or the two unprotected first, but no consequential rotation players in there? The Clippers have a lot of middling salaries. They can get to Harden's salary. Like what do you see as like the thing that Morey is going to hold out for?
I mean, to me, once you start getting into three first, then you got, then you're kind of cooking with grease, if you will.
If the Clippers can only trade two, though.
Well, that's where the man thing comes into play, is man being important because, he could be flipped for a first. And that would be attractive and of interest to the Sixers. The current offer, and this is Shabs reporting, unprotected first, pick swap, and salaries. That was offered back in July. And since then it's been, essentially that ask on the part of the Sixers, like, just that's not it. Go get more. And then the picks, there's been some speculation about, well, what are the Sixers doing? Are they trying to rebuild? Why do they want picks? No,
do you think Daryl would just immediately want it as a three-way? Like, maybe that would be part of the, looping another team in.
I think I could see it either way. I could see him doing the work on man. And I assume he already knows that. I mean, that's probably the type of deal where he's already got that lined up if it needs to be there. But the mystery, if you will, too, that I don't have the answer to is what's the next move? Because, taking all that draft capital and turning it into a player who, my feeling and informed speculation, if you will, is that player, whoever they have their eyes on, is not as good as James Harden. Like, say what you will about James. It's funny, Fred, we're going to get into storylines that we shouldn't ignore. Like, I do admittedly feel like we ignore the fact that James Harden led the league in assists last season, that he played a massive part in Joel Embiid being MVP of the league with the way he deferred, the way he changed his game. He had a pretty damn good year.
Remember, he also had, I know he had a few bad games in that Celtics series, including, I think, game 7.
Great games.
But he like won two of the games in Boston, like the biggest win.
And that's where Daryl is looking at it like, you got to be kidding me. This dude, like, once you get him happy on this new Clippers team, you're going to have a hell of a ball player. And, and the Sixers are trying, and Daryl with all his might, to not let go of the rope of title contention. And that's where this transaction is so massive. And that's where the question of if James is going to play, that's where it's so interesting to analyze, right? Because if you think playing is what gets you to the next team, then James chooses to get out there. But then the irony is, then once he gets out there, then the Sixers are title contenders again, depending on how he plays and how it looks. That's what they don't want to fall out of that window. And I'm very curious to see down the line. Let's assume he gets to the Clippers eventually. What are the Sixers doing there? Who are they targeting? And who is this player that, with all that draft capital, they want to try to flip to remain title contenders?